It is December 16th, 2021. We're here at the Pyle Center with Dr. Paul Mittman. I'm Michelle Hirsch. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'd like to start at the beginning, your beginning, of when and where were you born?
I was born in New York City, in Jackson Heights.
And where were your parents born or from?
New York City.
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
And what brought you to Arizona or Tempe?
Well, two things. In 1995, my wife and I went to Greece, and we came back and we were living in New England. And within a month or so, we looked at each other and said, I think we like summer better than winter. Why have we always, the two of us always lived somewhere cold? And so that kind of planted some seeds in our heads. And then in 1996, Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine recruited me to join the faculty. And so we moved here in 1997. So that's how we ended up in the Southwest in general, and then in Tempe in particular, because that's where the school is located.
And that's very interesting and impressive, so I can't wait to get to that, but I'll back up a little bit if you'll tell
Sure.
us about where you grew up and where you went to school and what prompted your career choice.
Okay, yeah. So I grew up in New York City, and I went to a Hebrew day school for the first 9 years of my education, and which was something that I really didn't appreciate how good an education it was, because it was both rigorous and it actually had two curricula that you had to cram into a single day. So half of it was the regular, public school or elementary school curriculum, and the other part was kind of the same thing but all in Hebrew. And so at the time, all I wanted to do was go play with my friends who went to public school. But looking back on it, I think it prepared me academically to both for college and beyond.
There's definitely evidence that shows when you learn another language plus the discipline of that, I can see where that would contribute to that. Where did you, I could ask if you're married and where you met your wife, and tell us about your family.
So, do you want me to go chronologically? Because I could get us there, or we could jump back and forth.
Yeah, go ahead and go chronologically.
So after college, I went to college in University of Buffalo, and graduated with a degree in anthropology. At the same time, I got I was introduced to rock climbing and mountaineering, and so moved to New England for a winter. I don't know why. I should have moved to Arizona for the winter and New England for the summer, but moved to New England for the winter, and then worked in an outdoor program for underserved children in New York, like inner city kids. So it was upstate New York. We did things like canoeing and rock climbing, hiking, survival, those kinds of things. So
and that was about what years was that?
That was I could tell you exactly what year it was. It was 1979.
Great.
And then a cousin of mine and I were on our way out to Yosemite. We got waylaid in Boulder, Colorado. And I think that is how, I actually, until this conversation, I never thought of it that way. But we were going to Yosemite to go climbing. And Boulder in Colorado has plenty of climbing also. And ran into an old friend there and got waylaid. And my cousin ended up taking a class from a naturopathic doctor. And he said to me, I think you'd be good at this. Which was kind of funny because my cousin ended up going on to, he started his own search firm. So it was an executive search firm from a long time ago. So I always sort of joked that he was good at connecting people with either jobs or careers. And so moved out to the West Coast. I graduated from a naturopathic medical school in Portland, Oregon, which is where I met my wife, which is why I kind of digressed
Yeah, that's
a
perfect.
little bit. And we were both students, and this is actually, she tells it better than I do, but I was coming out of the library and she was going into the library, and it had one of those glass doors, and we kind of like, did one of those push-pull things, and so that's how we met.
Oh.
And we were married in 1986, and have 2 children, and they're in their 30s now, married, have nice careers, and we moved back east to be near family, because Laura, that's my wife, is from Pennsylvania, and so we thought it would be better for our kids to be with their grandparents and cousins and things like that. However, we ended up settling in Connecticut, which wasn't close enough to neither Pennsylvania nor New York City to actually see relatives with the kind of regularity that they were probably hoping for, and we got very little babysitting out of the move also, and but we lived there from 1990 till 1997 till we moved out here.
Do you have any grandchildren?
No.
And so you move out here to Tempe to tell us your title at let's see, Southwest Naturopathic.
Close, although both
I didn't
Dr. Owen
cheat.
and I
I
know,
didn't
like
cheat.
a little
Look at my
secret, that
notes.
we are going to change the school is in the process of changing its name.
Oh, okay. So
we
tell
should
us what
talk
it
about
is.
that. And when is this going to
Yeah.
get released?
Probably a few weeks to a month.
Yeah, it takes
Okay.
about that long to
Yeah,
upload.
so we could even talk about it, because I think the new name is kind of embargoed for about a month, and so I think it would be perfect to
Oh,
talk
good.
a little bit about that, because I think it has to do with not just the school's growth and maturation, but also the school's partnerships and collaborations with Arizona State University and with other social service organizations as
So
well.
tell us the name of the college now,
Sure.
and then your title and what you came here
Okay.
to do.
And I'll
then
say
we
the
can
new
get-
name, that'll be
yeah.
like the end, that way
Yeah.
people have to listen to
There, we got a good
you have
scoop.
to watch the whole interview. So I came here, who do you want to hear the whole story?
Yeah,
Oh boy.
we love hearing stories.
Okay, all
That's
right.
why we're here.
I know. So we moved here in 1997, so I joined the faculty. And the school is on Broadway, just west of Price, in what was the Western Reserve Racquet Club. So a lot of people
Oh,
have
yeah.
been there. I remember we did a ribbon cutting, and the mayor at the time was Mayor Mitchell. And he, in the ribbon cutting remarks, couldn't resist saying that one of the buildings on our campus, he was there, I think, for prom night or for graduation or something like
wow.
that. And then we had a ribbon cutting for a new research institute just 2 months ago, and I think that Mayor Woods had similar comments about the old racquet club. So we moved here in '97. I joined the faculty, and the school had opened in 1993.
Okay.
And it's hard, like I can barely appreciate even now I'll say chutzpah for starting a school out of nothing, which the founder of the school, Dr. Michael Cronin and his wife Kyle Cronin, and a group of other individuals started this school from nothing. I think the move from where they were renting to buying a property was financially stressful. And
That's
so
understandable.
in 1999, the school just about closed.
Ooh.
And it's a funny thing, because for a long time I didn't want to talk about that, because it's like, oh, we almost closed. But I was reading a book. Dr. Rowan and I share some book ideas. You know that University of Chicago closed at one point. So I figure that we're in good company, because University of Chicago,
That's
is a very
interesting, yeah.
esteemed institution. But yeah, it closed, and then John G. Rockefeller, infused, even today it would be really great philanthropic gifts. But anyway, so the school almost closed, and I stepped forward to say, well, I'll be the interim president. Let's see what we can do here. We had a lot to do, but it wasn't rocket science. A lot of financial problems are sometimes the symptom of underlying problems. And so, there was some like acute fundraising that needed to happen. That's okay. And then after that, really working on what are some of the underlying issues that may have led either to certain decisions or whatever got the school into that position. And so that was in 1999. And within a couple of months, the school was on an even keel. We actually got our first accreditation. And I had this phone call with my mother that was really something that I've thought about many, many times. At the time, I was a faculty member, and I loved being a faculty member, but from an administrative standpoint, or all of the things that are part of being a president, and I thought it was a prerequisite, and perhaps it is. We're not part of my CV or my resume. And so I said to my mother, I said, yeah, I think things are good. We're on level ground. We're moving forward, and it'll be time for the school to go and recruit a president, which I thought felt appropriately realistic and also a little bit humble. And my mother said, and I'll say it now, but if you could imagine this over maybe 15 or 20 minutes, sort of reading me the riot act, she said, you either do the job like you mean to keep it, or you don't deserve to have the job even as an interim.
That gave me goosebumps too. Wow.
Well, it did give me goosebumps at the time, because nobody,
Well,
if you've had conversations like that where, she elaborated quite a bit and repeated it, but she was right. And it's not the last thing, that I learned from my mother or my father. My father was a prolific fundraiser for different organizations in the community, and he, in the 1960s, was actually, if I think about it in 21st century terms, it was really pretty, it was really good, and I think that infused in me the responsibility to, to volunteer and to be part of the community where you live or where you work, because he was out, usually one night a week or 2 nights a week at, at a board or something, and my mother too. So anyway, so that's how we moved here to Tempe. Well, the school moved here. We moved to Arizona, and so here I'll share, like I said earlier, we live in Mesa, and the way we ended up there was my wife drew a circle around the college, and it was a 5-mile radius, and she said, we're going to live somewhere in here because we had a very long commute in New England, and so the antidote to that, or the remedy for that, was going to be to live very close. So we live in Dobson Ranch, just over the 101, and it's a 3-mile commute. It's 9 minutes. As soon as I get in the car, I know that I'm going to be there in 9 minutes, and so that's why we live where we live.
Do you know how your predecessor at the college chose Tempe? Why did he choose maybe that location, or because that's like you said, that's a big step to decide to buy a building and locate somewhere. Do you know?
And to see, I have to say Michael Cronin is a visionary, and I don't think I would have had the, like I said, chutzpah earlier to start a school, but he is a real entrepreneur and visionary in that regard, and he did. I think sometimes, this was probably a decision that would have been better 2 or 3 years later, But even just to see in a building that was a racquetball club,
Yes.
you know, to see like, these racquetball courts could be classrooms or laboratories, or there was a basketball court, right? This would be a great auditorium. And so it was a good facility. And I think even at the time, you know, the 101, I think came down just to Broadway at that time. And I remember, you know, it wasn't connected to the 60, but, you know, between the 202, the 101, and the 60, you know, it was a good location, you know, just geographically. But the space offered a lot. And as it turned out, that first building that the school acquired in 1996 is the one of 3 that we now have on that property. So there were some adjacent properties that we were able to acquire and renovate or knock down something and create something new.
So it's Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine.
And health sciences.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and in the time that you have been, is the right title President, CEO?
Yeah.
In the time that you have been President and CEO, what growth, you've mentioned acquiring some other buildings, and now you have the added health sciences part of the title, and we'll get to the exciting announcement at the end, but what changes have you seen in, I'm going to call it your neighborhood, but your work neighborhood?
Sure.
In all of those years? You know, there have been probably businesses that have come and go, growth in your campus.
Sure.
So share with us some of the changes in those years.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the condominiums just to the west of the campus weren't there, so that was a vacant lot. The business park across the street on the south side of Broadway and Price, that wasn't there either. So, you know, there's been a lot. I wouldn't say it's, you know, on the order of Tempe Town Lake. There's been quite a bit of development in the area. For the school, you know, we added some buildings, and that's good, but buildings are just buildings. And so I would say there were some really important opportunities and changes that came along throughout the past 20 years, starting with opening community clinics. And so the college, so I should just say a little bit, naturopathic medicine, picture a doctor who combines the best of conventional approaches with the best of alternative approaches. So, you know, antibiotic, you can get an antibiotic if you have pneumonia. So, like I've taken an antibiotic for pneumonia or for infections, or maybe a kid with strep throat. But on the other hand, if you have a child who has his 8th or 10th ear infection, you know, before the age of 2 or 3, chances are another antibiotic is not going to cure it. And so looking at underlying either nutritional, environmental factors, and then supplementing those conventional treatments with nutrition, nutritional supplements, acupuncture, botanical medicines, homeopathy, and physical medicine like chiropractic. And so the school started as a naturopathic medical school and still has naturopathic medicine. So we have classes and we have a clinic. And so we also moved the clinic from its original location in Scottsdale to the Tempe campus. And so we have about 40 practitioners that include obviously naturopathic doctors, but we have acupuncturists, we have chiropractic, we have medical doctor. And so the idea isn't an either or, it's about like, how can we do the best by combining, you know, different approaches and different understandings of, you know, and not that it's different, but they complement each other. Because no single, either individual or profession for that matter, has all of the answers. And so we moved the clinic there, and then we opened some community clinics, starting with a substance abuse disorder clinic on the west side. It was called Arizona Pathways. I don't believe it's there anymore. Or we're not there anymore, but I don't believe it's there anymore. we started working with the HIV/AIDS community in 1996, and first with AIDS Project Arizona, then Body Positive, and now Southwest Center for HIV and AIDS continuously. Then we, I'm a member of Rotary, and we were having a conversation with a principal from a school in South Phoenix, and they were there to pick up the big check from the Rotary Club. And I remember asking him at the end, I said, do your children ever need like a physical exam or something that we could do periodically? And he said, yeah, that would be great. And so we had a group of doctors and students come in, we did physical exams, and then I saw the principal again. And I said, you know, he told me how great it was, and I said, oh, you know, we would love to come back. Let me know, when would you like us to come back? He goes, how about next week? And so, so that was our third community clinic. So we started in a little room off of the nurse's office, and then moved into another space. And then thanks to some local foundations, including the Virginia Piper Charitable Trust, we were able to raise money to actually build a clinic at the Hamilton Elementary School. And it happened to coincide within a year of the Rotary Club creating its first Field of Dreams, where the club took what was a vacant and dangerous lot, and with sponsorships from the Suns, the Diamondbacks, and the Cardinals, put it in a kind of like a little sports complex.
Wow.
I mean, that's kind of overstated. There was a football
But
field,
still, it went from a
basketball court,
blank
and
field.
yeah, and like a real baseball, like a Little League baseball field with scoreboard and everything like that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And so, yeah, so we opened that and have been running that up until the pandemic, when schools were, you know, closed or remote. And we just got the word this week that we'll be back at Hamilton, which is the Arthur M. Hamilton Elementary School, because there is another Hamilton in Mesa. And so we'll be back there next week. We've been at Sojourner Center for 15 years now, so we have a clinic doing primary care there. And then Mission of Mercy is a mobile clinic. We've been affiliated with Mission of Mercy. And then Changing Lives is a substance abuse disorder center, and so we've been there for many years as well. And then our most recent community center, health center, is the Roosevelt Health Center in the Roosevelt School District. And I don't know, I mean, I love telling stories, but I don't want to make it all about, although I guess if I was involved in it, you know,
Yeah.
I have to.
Well, and
play a
I
role
think
in it.
that there's definitely people that don't know
Mhm.
what naturopathic medicine is. They don't know
Sure.
what you do, and
Okay.
so it's interesting and it's informative.
Yeah.
So, and it
Okay.
is. I think it comes back to, you know, we like to ask about your parents and how they influenced you, and your parents definitely
Okay,
influenced
you'll
you.
cut this part of the conversation out. I just don't want to be. I don't want to be boring about, you know.
Oh, I find it
when we did
interesting.
this.
Yeah. If it gets boring, they'll cut it out.
Okay. Good. So yeah, so we have a center, and Dr. Rowan's been to the center in the Roosevelt School District, and it started when the architect from the Hamilton Elementary School introduced the members of the Roosevelt School District Board to us, because they were going to build a clinic or health center in a repurposed elementary school. It was from 1957, and they didn't need it, and it was and so now it's home for 22 nonprofit organizations. And so they had space, and they were going to build a clinic, and asked if we would run the clinic based on the experience at Hamilton Elementary School. We said, great. So we went and got a grant from the
You
Piper
say that
Charitable
so
Trust.
easily.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, it gets harder. So, so did I ever tell you this?
I don't think so.
Oh, so we got a grant, and the day or within a week of the check coming in for over $100,000, the school district called. They lost their funding, so there wasn't going to be a clinic. So it's not easy to get a grant, but it's really hard to give a grant back, because it doesn't. It's not just that you're giving back money; it's that it doesn't look good to the donor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, we'll build the clinic. Problem was we didn't have any money to do that, and so we had a young intern from ASU, Katie Volden at the time. Now she's Katie Nettles, and I said to her, well, we have to raise the money to build this clinic that somebody else is going to build on somebody else's property. And so, and the clock was ticking because we had a report due, to the donor. And we were within like a few days of having to I don't know what we were going to say to the funder, when two local foundations stepped forward and donated $300,000, and then someone else donated $75,000, and so we had, for a renovation, we had enough money to do it, and we had a wonderful gentleman who has developed several buildings here in the Valley in the healthcare sector, volunteer his services to oversee the project.
Wow.
And so, and so it ended up working out, but it was pretty touch and go. That was one of the adventures in college presidencies that I would hope not to repeat.
But it is inspiring to other people that you had a belief, and you obviously have to have community connections, and people believe in you and the college. So it really is inspiring to.
And I don't want to make it only about we wouldn't want to give the money back, because we're going to have to use that money to run the center in the first place. It was that after all of the time that we had in the front end, we were excited about it. We had also met with the school district, and so it was something that, I think I had some experiences climbing where, I kind of put well, this is life and death, and this is a little bit less threatening, and so the prospect of sort of hanging, by one's fingertips, either literally or figuratively, was, I guess I was kind of comfortable with that.
Well, you have either employed people or engaged with people that have probably had to continue grants to keep these clinics moving and going. So to be a leader in your organization and inspire people to also believe in what you're doing, and to be passionate about it and want to come and work and support it is like I said, it's inspiring, and I think it's fun to have for posterity.
Well, thanks. The other thing that I think was a major development at the school was research, and really research, kind of the catalyst for what is now a research institute, really started about 20 years ago. We learned of an NIH grant that was exploring a whole range of properties of the plant echinacea. And so you're probably familiar with echinacea. It's a popular herb for respiratory problems, viral problems as well. And
NIH would be National Institute of Health.
Institute for Health. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting grant request because it had to be a partnership between an academic institution and a company. It's called a Small Business Innovation Research Grant. And so every institute at the NIH, infectious allergy and infectious disease, which Dr. Fauci, headed at one point, the heart, cancer, etc. So there's each one has an SBIR grant. And so this was in the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. And so it was a grant, and we had the perfect partner in a company in North Carolina called Gaia Herbs. And I knew the president of Gaia, a gentleman named Rick Scalzo, from just having been in practice. So we had a professional acquaintance, and we applied for this grant. And it was in the days before you could submit anything electronically. So I don't know, I'm sure Dr. Rowan, you've had like stories like this where the research director at SCNM literally flew to North Carolina to get the signature from the folks there. So she had our signatures here, and then from North Carolina she got on a plane and flew to Bethesda, Maryland, to hand deliver the grant application, because it was, we didn't have a lot of time to do it, but we got the grant.
There's scanners and digital sending of stuff at that time, right?
Maybe there were faxes, but I don't think you could submit anything.
Yeah, it wasn't
by
the
fax
original,
or
yeah.
something like that. And so, so we did that grant. It was a 4-year study. A lot of publications came out of it, but it started this company's. It laid the groundwork for a research department within Gaia Herbs, and they had a lot of collaborations with different institutions. And at SCNM, it started a culture of research that's persisted to this day. Also, with respect to the plant echinacea, which is widely used in commerce, we discovered some new molecules that really opened up the understanding of how the plant worked. So, and then the other, I would say, important research-related initiative happened when Dr. Jeffrey Langland joined our faculty. So Jeff is a virologist with over 30 years of experience. The first 22 were in conventional virology, and then in 2007 he has a joint appointment at the university and at SCNM. And so I'm sure our students must have hounded him mercilessly to start looking at medicinal plants in addition to either antibiotics, antivirals, or vaccines. And so he did a study. He said, all right, well, I'll challenge you. And there was an old paper in a journal called The Lancet, which is a British medical journal, big deal journal. Mm-hmm. And it was an article about a Mi'kmaq woman healer in Nova Scotia, Canada, who was treating soldiers who had smallpox using this plant. And it was a plant, frankly, that I'd never heard of either. And it's a plant called Sarcenia purpurea, and it's a carnivorous plant, which kind of makes it even more interesting. And so he said, well, all right, let's see if what you're saying, what our students were telling him, is true. And as you would imagine, you can't just study smallpox just anywhere. In fact, you can only study smallpox one place in the United States, and that's at the CDC. Oh. And so he looked at various pox viruses from the pox family, varicella, herpes zoster, varicella zoster, herpes simplex, and the plant was strongly antiviral for all of these organisms. So then they looked at monkeypox, which required the laboratory at Arizona State University, and it worked on monkeypox. And monkeypox is it's not benign because it still has some lethality, but compared to, it's related to smallpox, but much less lethal than smallpox. And then they actually sent it to the CDC, and the CDC confirmed the antiviral activity of the plant. And so that was what hooked Dr. Langland on studying herbs. And to this day, his research portfolio is just looking at medicinal plants.
Well, and it's, I think the average, or maybe the lay person, I'm not exactly sure the term, hadn't even heard of virologists until the pandemic, but all of this is going on pre-pandemic. And
yeah, this is pre-pandemic.
And
although Jeff Langland was a very popular person, he probably got the most media attention out of anybody on our campus, way more than me. But I'm sorry, I was interrupting.
It's interesting to be informed about, besides COVID, which is the virus we all, hear about these days, all of the other research and impacts and implications that are going on right there
in our backyard.
Yeah.
I know.
So,
And we haven't even gotten to the coolest part, which was that, there was a lot in between, but he said that grant was in 2001, and fast forward to 2019, and the president of Gaia, was the founder, and he left the company, sold the company, and made a transformational gift to Southwest College to start a research institute and build laboratories and bring on PhDs to staff it that focuses exclusively on the molecular biology of medicinal plants.
Wow.
And so it's kind of a nice, it's actually, thank you so much for inviting me here, because these are all stories that were kind of more fragmentary in my mind, and like seeing like the arc of how, when you look at things from a historical perspective, you see how the arc of history, is interesting.
Well, and it is interesting because, it starts out with young Paul being influenced by his parents and his cousin, and to think about moving here and the impact that that the college has had, and the growth. Just being the college itself and teaching is fantastic, and then the clinics is quite an impact. But then to have the research part of it as well. So right here in Tempe, it's
Who knew?
I have to admit I hadn't even heard of it before we talked about interviewing you, and I could definitely be in the minority, but to have such significant teaching and learning, and then community.
Yeah, well, all of our
Impacts.
students are required to do 45 hours of community service.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
that's in addition to their studies.
Yeah.
And then we encourage our staff and faculty to either events that we hold on our campus, whether it's a clothing drive or something like that, or in other organizations, to join other organizations. And so I know we've been represented at Tempe Community Action Agency.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that was me. I was on the board, which was really great, because that's how I met a future trustee, Lou Silverman, and someone who serves on our foundation board, Deborah Hunter, and that was where I met Mayor Woods, because he was on the board of directors of TCAA.
And that's, to allude to some of the relationships and connections you have to be able to be this impactful and successful. It's helpful to know what organizations you're a part of, and like you said, Rotary. Sure. And
I know there's members of Kiwanis, there's
mm-hmm.
members of other Rotary clubs, because there's lots around. We have a excuse me.
Yeah,
we have a Toastmasters on our campus.
Oh wow, that's helpful too.
Right. Our students, I don't know if they're back to doing it during the pandemic, but our students go to Mexico every month to volunteer at a free clinic in Mexico. So it's kind of hardwired into the school's DNA, and I think it attracts people, whether it's students, our faculty, our staff, and I would say our trustees also, who are, it's not, it's not just a career, it's like either a calling or, I mean, that sounds kind of trite. Or speaking of trite, the famous maybe Winston Churchill quote about we make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how the people that I know who've been through the school or at the school, that's how they feel. And now we have over 1,700 graduates from the Doctor of Naturopathic Medicine program. In the early 90s, when the school opened, there were about 40 naturopathic doctors in Arizona, and now there's over 700 practicing here in the state.
Wow.
And so, the school is really like, it's like if you toss a pebble into the pond, the school is here, and then the impact ripples outward, whether it's through research or education or other doctors who are then helping more people.
Exactly, yeah. That's, I'll tell you, I am too old to go back to school, and I have no medical training or anything, but my gosh, if I was younger, I would want to, I just found it really
we also
interesting.
have a nutrition program,
Mhm.
which is shorter, and it's 100% online, and it doesn't have the same prerequisites as a medical school does. So I'm just sort of joking as a segue into a program that we launched in April 2020, which, as it turns out, is a good time to launch a 100% online program.
Yeah.
Which was really beneficial because not only was it important for that program, but all of the work that we did to get accredited and all of the resources that we had to add to the school came in handy, because also in April of 2020, the ND program was going to have to be online, like so many programs during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So that launched in April 2020. We currently have about 40% of our student population is in the School of Nutrition. And the school has just under 600 students in it right now.
Well, and it has to be exciting to see the wider acceptance of the importance of looking at nutrition and even plants as medicinal, but I'll just stick with nutrition for this example. I remember having younger children, and parents would sometimes want to put their kids on medications for hyperactivity, and I remember thinking, well, maybe if you just didn't feed them so much sugary cereals and things, they would calm down a little bit. And again, I have no medical training or background, but I find it really interesting that somebody would get a degree in nutrition and then be able to advise people on their overall health based on nutrition. So it has to be exciting to see the growth and acceptance of that.
Sure. Well, and I would say over the 40 years that I've been in this field, starting as a student and until now, this is the 40th year, the acceptance is night and day compared to the 1980s. And I would say not just acceptance, but the ability to collaborate and to partner with other health professionals, medical doctors, osteopaths, to work together. At the college, we opened we called it Pain Center. It's now known as the Neil Reardon Center for Regenerative Medicine. And we attended I don't know if I told you this either, that we attended, we had this so I ride a bicycle. And if I took the shirt off, you would see my bicycle shirt. And I was in a bicycle crash, which happens to everybody, it seems like, who rides a bicycle enough, in 2012. And as a result of that, I had to get x-ray, I had to go to the hospital, get x-ray, I had to go to orthopedist, I had to go to physical therapist, I saw an acupuncturist, I saw a naturopath, I saw a chiropractor. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of work. And I thought, what if we put all of this in one place? And around the same time, there was an institute in the Washington, D.C. area. It was called the Samueli Institute, and they were sponsoring a chronic pain collaborative. And so it was a year-long initiative. They were going to accept 8 organizations, and you had to apply and you had to pay to get into it. And it was perfect timing for us, and it wasn't so expensive that it was that we couldn't do it. And so we applied and were accepted into this pain collaborative, and it was modeled and it was co-chaired by 2 Army generals, one of them being David Friedovich. General Friedovich is now on our board of trustees, which it didn't take me long to figure out that he had I think a 602 area code, and then I looked up his address and I thought, what a great. And so he ended up speaking at the school for a while, and not too long ago joined our board of trustees. But he and another retired brigadier general, Dr. Eric Schoonmaker, he was the Surgeon General of the Army. And they, even in the early teens, they had experience with too many people with chronic pain. Mm-hmm. You know, all of these soldiers coming home from the wars with chronic pain, and they were like the canary in the coal mine, the VA, the Military Department of Defense, for the opioid epidemic that was to follow. And so they were already dealing with that. And they were doing things like using ear acupuncture out in the field for pain relief for people who were, for soldiers who were wounded. Mm-hmm. And so the idea was how do you create a model where a patient is at the center of the model? And it's not like, I'm a surgeon, so this is my tool. I'm a chiropractor, so this is my tool. I'm an naturopath, so this is my tool. I'm an activist, this is what I do. Because so the model that they facilitated these 8 organizations to put together was a patient-centered and interdisciplinary approach. And so that became the foundation for what we did at what's now the Neil Reardon Center. So we have an anesthesiologist, pain specialist, we have acupuncture, chiropractic, naturopathic, we have nutrition. And so when you put all of that together, you have more answers than you would if you were only, one of those different professions. Yeah. Pain is like a whole, but I think I sort of jumped to that when you were talking about respect, but some of these collaborations happen partly because of the way that, society has changed. And, there's so much about nutrition and health coaching and mindfulness, right? And exercise. I got my Apple Watch, that's why I've got my bicycle here, otherwise I would have driven it. But part of it is also, the attitude that the school brought, which was that, we're going to go further together with ASU, with other naturopathic medical schools or other schools in the CAM sector. We have a collaboration with U of A. We have a dual degree with a Master of Public Health. So if there are ND students in our program who want to pursue their MPH, they can do that concurrently.
Well, and the increase in the collaborations and the partnerships helps bring more mutual understanding. So if you're able to work together and more disciplines can understand what naturopathic medicine is and understand more about the research you're doing and be excited about being involved. And so just your efforts to partner and collaborate, I think makes that kind of impact happen.
Yeah, you as in me, as in all of us, and not solely me. Can I come back to one thing about plants that I think is kind of interesting? Well, 2 things. One is that plant medicines are the source of some of our most important drugs. So starting with aspirin, the first anti-cancer drug called vincristine is from periwinkle, Vinca major, Vinca minor. Aspirin is from Salix alba, the white willow tree. And so salicylic acid is aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2015, Dr. Yu in China, she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for artemisinin, which comes from the plant wormwood, which is the most important drug for treating malaria for the last 50 years. And so plants are, and I'm not saying this because it's like, oh, botanical medicine, or it's really, there's a library, not a library, like a treasure trove of plants that have some answers to our health problems. There's 500,000 species of plants in the plant kingdom, and we have explored about 5,000. So that means that we have a lot to go. Where 1% of all of the plants have been, really studied. And, I'm sure that there are plants, like grass is a plant. I don't mean to put grass down, but chances are it's not a medicinal gold mine.
Mm-hmm.
But, there are plants like these carnivorous plants are interesting. And, other than the, kind of either weirdness or coolness factor of a carnivorous plant, when you think about plants, like, why should a plant have a medicine in it in the first place? I mean, it's not like,
It's
in
fascinating. Yeah.
the 20th century, people are, it actually goes back to, prehistoric times. But plants have these chemicals because they need to protect themselves. They can't get up and run. So I'm sure you've seen that there are plants that are poisonous so that insects don't eat them or animals don't eat them. But plants get infections, including viruses.
Mm.
And they need to make compounds to fight off the viruses.
Oh.
Viruses are pretty simple. I don't know, it's debatable whether they're actual organisms because they don't live outside of a host.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not that different between a plant and a person. And so that's why there are some plants that have medicines, in this case antivirals, that are particularly useful to people. And the vector, which is what kind of transmits it from one plant to another, happens to be insects.
Oh, okay.
And so hence the difference between a photosynthetic plant, which has kind of a casual relationship with bugs, right, versus a carnivorous plant, which has a much more intimate relationship with bugs. But they get like a heaping dose of viruses because of the nature of the plant. And so there are plenty of plants that are antiviral, but the fact that carnivorous plants happen to have a fair number of antiviral compounds is pretty fascinating.
It is fascinating. And again, I think it's very exciting that you have that research aspect of the college right here. I mean,
yeah. We've brought together pharmacists, newly minted PhD from ASU, PhD from Central Florida, PhD from Iran, and a pharmacist, and a naturopathic doctor. And so them working together between molecular biology and analytical chemistry, plus the clinician who's the naturopathic doctor, is really, it's a unique perspective on plants. And so it's really, it's just such an exciting time.
Was there something else that you wanted to share about a partnership with ASU that you haven't already?
I think, well, a couple of things. I've had we have 3 other dimensions to it. Number one is that we have had since 2000, we've had a member of our board of trustees from Arizona State University, starting with Dr. Charles Backus, Dr. Chuck Backus. He was the provost at the time at what is now, and probably kind of the founder of ASU Poly. Then we had Dr. David Schwam, and after Dr. Schwam, we now have Dr. Rowan, all having leadership positions at Arizona State University, also all being esteemed faculty members. And it's hard to, for people in the nonprofit sector would appreciate this, but it's hard to appreciate how important a board is. And so to have people with a background in higher education is especially important. So we've had that relationship. We've also had a number of our students go on to teach courses at ASU, or teach in programs. And I would say that ASU is probably the, certain departments are the biggest, that's where the largest number of our students come from.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have done some really interesting research on vitamin D and COVID. We did a collaboration with Dr. Jim Adams at ASU. We've been working with him for about 16 years, before Dr. Langham got here. So we've been doing autism studies with Dr. Adams. A lot of really interesting autism studies. He's probably one of the leaders in the country in the field of autism research.
And for people that aren't in the medical field, and they might just be interested in some of the research or findings, I know some information is on your website, just in terms of articles and things that have been published, and I find it very interesting. I mean, I was just reading and reading lots of interesting information for the layperson. But I want to go to what do you hope that people will remember you for? What do you hope that whether it's your family or students or colleagues think about you, remember you for?
So, if I could answer it in 2 ways.
Sure.
As far as the school is concerned, and either the naturopathic profession or CAM, I really don't expect anything. And that's just like, life moves on, and so I'm not either waiting for anything, and, when my tenure at the school ends, I'll move on from that. What I would want to be remembered is a good husband and father and son, brother, good, a good person, who was here for like a flicker of a moment, in our planet's history, and was a good person. And having said that, I mentioned a lot of people, but the person who really makes it possible for me is my wife, Laura, which is, she actually works at the school, and has taken this pain center, this Neil Reardon Center, to a completely different level. And so, I mean, that's just the latest thing, but, without her, it's hard for me to imagine the last 35 years. And the fact that I bragged about our kids a little bit at the beginning, the 80-20 rule, that in general, like 20% of the people get 80% of the work done.
Oh, okay.
It's like, it's not going to be 50-50. So we have an 80-20 rule. 80% of the really good things that have come out of our marriage are because of Laura.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
I'm happy to take credit for 20%.
What are you excited about with, I mean, you can share what you're excited about with life, but particularly the college. There's some new things happening.
Yeah. So there's 3 new things happening. One of them is the change to a university. And so, a university has to have 3 components.
I didn't know that.
well, I mean, anybody can call themselves a university, but to me, and I think to Dr. Rowan would agree, a university has to have teaching and learning. A university has to have scholarship and research, and a university has to have community involvement. And it was really with the addition of the nutrition program. So, you know, our goal is to continue to add programs that are in the health sector.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big thing. Second thing is the name change. And so on December 6th, 2021, Southwest College's Board of Trustees voted to change the name of the school to Sonoran University of Health Sciences.
Sonoran University of Health Sciences.
Sonoran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sonoran, and it'll be sonoran.edu, pretty sure. So that's really exciting, and it gives us a chance to kind of retell our story in a very, it's like retelling the story in a completely different way. Because, you know, we always told the story in the context of naturopathic medicine, which, you know, I mean, that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a naturopathic doctor, so is my wife, so is my son, and so is our daughter-in-law. They met in school at SCNM. But to tell the story of the school with like a broader palette, like with a wider color range, is really, you know, a great opportunity. So, you know, the name itself doesn't necessarily mean anything because it's just words. You know, it'll be the meaning that we, you know, that it collects over time with good acts, contributions, scholarship, service, research, learning, etc. And then the last thing is going on at the school is we just started. Oh, I shouldn't really talk about it. So I'll scratch if you could erase that because we're in a silent phase of a comprehensive campaign. If I start talking about it, then it's not a silent phase anymore.
That's okay.
But I think I have to say that the addition of another program to the school has really, you know, it brought an intellectual diversity that is like, it's like a whole new horizons have opened up, you know, like a blast of, not like it was stale air, but it feels like fresh air, you know, and I'm really looking forward to developing the nutrition program, to growing the collaborations between those two, starting more programs, and then you know, some of the exciting work that's being done in research is really, I think, you know, I've been looking at, well, I'm trying to say, I got a thing from Penn, University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
On their recent, they had a recent fundraising campaign for $4.3 billion. I know, I'm like, do you really need any more? I mean, at a certain point when you have like tens of billions of dollars, that probably is like $1 billion of interest. This isn't part of the conversation. But in the School of Education where I went, 54% of it was for research. That kind of surprises me, you know, especially in education. You know, if it was engineering or if it was life sciences or something like that, I would, you know, it wouldn't have surprised me at all. But I think the opportunity for research with plants, we're also doing some clinical trials, and I think that we've got some international students from as far away as Saudi Arabia. So I'm thinking,
Well,
global imprint.
The global imprint, and then just the excitement, your passion, and dedication, and the excitement that it's right here in Tempe has been interesting to.
Can I talk a little bit more about, you know, I've been talking about the school a lot, so you'll have to insert this somewhere else. Some of the most uplifting and enjoyable experiences I've had have been members of the Mayor's Task Force for Dementia-Friendly Tempe.
Oh, right.
And participating, you know, getting to hang out in the mayor's office in the upside down building, and meeting, you know, people from across the city. So the fire department, the fire marshal is there, the chief of police is there, you know, all, you know, he really, that was Mayor Mitchell, had the whole city represented. We've been meeting remotely, you know, during the pandemic, but you know, for Tempe, it is one of the leaders in dementia-friendly cities in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the programs at Tempe Community Action Agency, you know, really blew my mind. You know, coming from the East Coast, it was my understanding that the city directly provided a lot of the services that TCAA provides, like delivering meals to seniors to their houses every day, or I think 5 days a week. Food bank, clothing bank. I help, you know, having basically, I think about 30 churches house homeless people on a rotating basis, and it goes all around the East Valley. But that was started here in Tempe. You know, being part of a community that is so forward-thinking, that thinks about ways to take care of everyone, to, you know, to look at things holistically, like Dementia-Friendly Tempe. A lot of it is Jan Doherty, who is, you know, worked at Banner Alzheimer's Institute, and she brought this to Tempe because she's a longtime Tempe resident, you know, and the mayor, you know, jumped on it. But you know, to see an issue that is not only going to affect us more and more, but to see it so holistically, you know, really speaks to the kind of open-mindedness, acceptance, and dynamism of being in Tempe. Like, yes, like what has changed? I'm sure you've talked to a lot of other people who've seen so many changes, but like, if Rip Van Winkle slept for 20 years and woke up in the middle of Tempe, he would have no idea where he was.
Yeah, a lot of good change. You know, it started good and continues to be good.
I meant it
changes.
in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. We do like to open it up to have other people ask questions.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think, Dwayne, you might have some questions.
I have a question, but I have an observation too. You talked about that when your term ends as president, whenever that might be, that you know you might not be remembered for a long time. In my view, given what I've seen in your leadership, I think you will be remembered for a very, very long time. You have the leadership qualities that I admire most in people: endless empathy, compassion, humility, vision, commitment to innovation, a commitment to fostering an organization where people feel respected, valued, and welcomed. And so, and I do a lot of family history writing workshops, and one of them I do is based on It's a Wonderful Life. And I ask people to imagine what the world would be like if they had never been born. And I challenge you, Paul Mittman, to think about what the college would be like if you had not been born, if you had not become president of the organization. And then I do have a question for you as well.
But first, let me say thank you. And I can't think of another person in the world that means more to me.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you. You, in addition to your work as a leader of Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine, you also have had a lot of community involvement. And my question to you is, what advice do you give to people who want to get involved in the community but don't know how? I was talking to a student just yesterday at a university in Ohio who wants to come here to study at ASU, and she said, will there be opportunities for me to get involved in the community if I come here? And I said, there'll be lots of them, but what's the advice you give to people?
Well, I would say when asked, apparently there's a rule in improv, not that I've ever done it, but a friend of mine took a class at Second City. And apparently the rule in improv is if someone asks you a yes or no question, you have to answer yes. Because otherwise, if you said no, that would be the end of the skit. So I would say, if someone asks, say yes. Something that my wife taught me, she actually imprinted it on a bracelet. It says, run to do good things. And, I've heard this many times, I'm sure you have also, that, whatever it is that you give, you end up getting more back from that. And I think that, we have classes in practice management, and talks about building a business, but really being a volunteer connects you to the community in a way that, and so I would tell our students who are going into some kind of practice, whether it's nutrition or naturopathic medicine, look for opportunities. There is an alliance of nonprofits in Arizona, which would be a great way to get involved. We've got great organizations right here in Tempe, not just SCNM, but we have Impact Mental Health Services. We have Junior Achievement just down the road from us. We have, I forgot the name, but a group that sends medical missions all around the world. We did an event with them, but I can't remember the name. So I would say just look for opportunities. There's no shortage of organizations or need. Volunteer at TCAA. Volunteer, at one of the senior centers that they have here. Dementia Friendly Tempe is a great way to volunteer. And so say yes if asked, and if nobody asks you, look around, and it shouldn't take you long in a place like this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Debbie, I think, has a question.
I love how many times you talk about forming partnerships or a collaborative environment, and I think that would be a wonderful thing that all of us could develop skills to be able to do. But there must be a way that to set it up to be successful and to be able to bring out the best in everyone. How does that work?
How does it work to bring out the best in everyone? I would say it didn't always work. so that's one thing, is to be resilient enough if something doesn't work out. I think the more you prepare, and the more you have some kind of personal relationship with the organization, whether it is with the leadership of the organization or board members of the organization. I think an important thing is to in the community clinics that we've been involved in, we've tried to be not just respectful, but assume that the people in whatever community know way more than we do about what their needs are, what their goals are, And we have something to offer, but it would be presumptuous to go in thinking that we have, the golden pass or something like that. So some of it has been, working with either school district or school, seeking input, from other either individuals or organizations. And I think, the resilience part is that, I would say the social profit or nonprofit sector is under a lot of stress. A lot of stress right now through the pandemic, but even at this point, well, we're still in the pandemic. But I think just being flexible and being understanding that different organizations have ups and downs. The school does, we know that. I mean, I know that intimately. But understanding that other organizations have their own ups and downs. There are leadership changes that could be that could throw you a curveball, and just kind of having patience and respect, and seek to understand others before assuming that you have something something special to offer.
That's wise insight. I feel like we could talk to you for twice as long. It's really interesting. I do want to ask you one last question. Is there anything that we haven't asked about life, family, work, anything that you'd like to share that we didn't ask?
We could talk about bicycling. I rode here on a bicycle. I was
You did, yes.
I was in my wife got a bike, and she said, "Get your old bike out." It had been like 20 years, where the bike looked terrible and I looked terrible. It wasn't that bike, and I was 36 pounds heavier at the time, and 30 pounds. We had a little pandemic. And I realized how much I liked riding a bicycle. I don't know about you guys, but riding a bike as a kid, to me, was about, the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Catching certain fly balls was pretty good. So someone told me about Phoenix Metro Bike Club, which leaves from Kiwanis Park every Saturday morning for years and years and years and years. And that's another part of Tempe that's really fun, is going there on a Saturday morning. And it depends. I think this Saturday is going to be a little sparse because it's going to be about 43 degrees. But some great cyclists. And the city is pretty good when it comes to bike paths.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any qualms, about getting here from my house. So great riders, great city. So that was the only thing.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much. It's
thank
been
you.
interesting.
It was
We
really
appreciate
fun.
your time and your impact in Tempe.
So this was what you were
Yeah,
looking for, hoping for. It was good.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thank